There is a country where, in just a few minutes, you can leave Europe and step into Asia without ever boarding a plane. Right in Istanbul, people can eat breakfast on one continent and go to work on the other, while calls to prayer echo between modern bars and traces of three great empires still remain. Deep inside the country, ancient cities lie hidden beneath the ground. Hundreds of hot air balloons drift across Cappadocia, and Pamukkale shines white, like a castle made of cotton. So what has turned Turkey into a place where two worlds can exist side by side? Subscribe, press like, and leave a comment telling me, what would you most like to discover in this country? Istanbul, where Europe and Asia meet. Istanbul is one of the very few places in the world where, in just a few minutes, people can leave Europe and step into Asia without ever boarding a plane. Every morning, ferries glide across the Bosphorus Strait, carrying people from the European shore to the opposite shore in Asia. Some have breakfast on one continent, then cross to the other to go to work, as casually as if they were simply walking across a familiar street. For them, it is an everyday rhythm. For the rest of the world, it still feels almost impossible to believe. This city once served as the capital of three great empires in history: the Roman, the Byzantine, and the Ottoman. The traces of all three are still present along the same streets, one layer beside another, with the past pressing into the present without ever disappearing. You can walk past an ancient structure that is thousands of years old, turn into a crowded square, and then see a music-filled bar standing right beside a mosque. From the minarets, the call to prayer rises 5 times each day, while in a nearby seaside restaurant, a glass of raki still glows under the lights. Images that seem completely opposite somehow exist together in the same setting. At first glance, everything feels like a contradiction with no clear answer. A modern city still holds tightly to traditions that have survived for centuries. Music, alcohol, faith, and the marks of old empires all remain present without erasing one another. The answer lies in the way Turkey has lived for thousands of years, carrying two identities within one country and learning how to let both exist side by side. Napoleon once said that if the whole world were a single country, its capital would be here. That statement was not only about the beauty of Istanbul, but also about the city's unique place in history. From Istanbul, the journey takes us away from domes and mosque towers to the rock valleys of Cappadocia, where hundreds of hot air balloons rise together in the light of early morning. Farther on is Pamukkale, a bright white hillside that looks like a castle made of cotton, shaped by hot mineral water flowing over thousands of years. Along the coast, the turquoise water of the Mediterranean opens into a completely different landscape, where seaside towns rest between mountains, sunlight, and crystal-clear water. Ahead of you is a land where the past has never truly disappeared, but still lives on in every dome, wall, and daily habit. Each destination reveals another layer of this country between two continents, where things that seem opposite still exist together. And that is Turkey, a country that cannot be understood through just a few first images, yet becomes harder and harder to look away from the more deeply you explore it. Anatolia, Turkey's 12,000-year-old heart. Few countries in the world possess a position as complex and as remarkable as Turkey. On the map, the country stretches across two continents. A small part lies in Europe, while most of its territory, the vast region known as Anatolia, is in Asia. The two areas are separated by the Bosphorus Strait, a narrow waterway connecting the Black Sea with the Sea of Marmara. From one shore, people can see the continent on the opposite side, while ferries continue to carry passengers back and forth every day as a normal part of life. Across this land, around 86 million people now live. With a population of this size, Turkey has more people than Germany. This is not a small country between two continents, but a densely populated, diverse, and highly influential society in the region. Many communities have left their own mark on shared life over generations. Most of the population is Turkish, but the country is also home to Kurds, Arabs, Armenians, and the lasting traces of many other communities that passed through this land over thousands of years. That cultural interaction has created a place where many historical traditions, identities, and layers of memory continue to exist together. At its center, Anatolia is not only the largest part of Turkey, it is also one of the oldest regions connected to the development of human civilization. In the south of the country, archaeologists discovered a stone temple dating back around 12,000 years. The site is often regarded as the oldest known temple ever found in the world. To put that age into perspective, it was built about 7,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids and about 6,000 years before Stonehenge. At that time, humans had not yet developed writing, had not invented the wheel, and had not established agriculture as we understand it today. Yet, communities of hunters and gatherers were still able to move stone blocks weighing several tons, carve images of animals into their surfaces, and arrange them into a ceremonial space. This shows that they possessed far more advanced abilities in organization, cooperation, and construction than researchers had previously imagined. This discovery caused a major shock because it forced people to reconsider long-standing assumptions about the origins of communal life and the beginning of religious structures. It introduced the possibility that humans may have gathered to build places of worship before establishing permanent farming villages. For this reason, when you arrive in Turkey, you are not simply entering a country between Europe and Asia. You are crossing a land where layer after layer of history still rests beneath your feet, and where every stone may preserve a story older than the combined history of many modern nations. Hagia Sophia, the building that tells the history of Turkey. Istanbul has passed through so many eras that even the city's name changed with history. At first, it was known as Byzantium. Later, Roman Emperor Constantine chose the city as his capital and renamed it Constantinople. For centuries, it remained one of the richest and most powerful centers in the world. When the Ottoman Empire conquered the city, the name gradually became Istanbul, and it has remained ever since. Across three empires, the Romans, Byzantines, and Ottomans each left their mark on every street. A church stands on one corner, a mosque on another, while ancient city walls still remain after more than 1,000 years. This is why Istanbul feels unlike any other place. It is both the end of Europe and a gateway into Asia. In a city of around 16 million people, visitors often expect pollution, concrete, and crowded streets. Yet Istanbul still has tree-lined avenues, waterfront parks, and green spaces that make the city feel less overwhelming. On the Bosphorus, ferries do more than carry people from place to place. They are a familiar part of daily life. Many passengers stand by the railings, watch the seagulls, and throw them pieces of simit, the sesame-covered bread rings sold throughout the city. Between the sound of the waves and the salty breeze, they put away their phones, slow down after a long day, and find a moment of peace inside this enormous city. Across the neighborhoods, bars, nightclubs, and young people with modern lifestyles appear beside mosques. Women go to work and build careers, while football remains a powerful part of everyday culture. Then 5 times each day, the call to prayer rises from the minarets. Some people stop to pray, while others continue with their work. Tradition and modern life do not remove each other. They exist together within the same rhythm. For visitors, Istanbul feels familiar enough to resemble European cities, yet it still carries a clear Eastern character. The city remains lively day and night, although tourists should still be careful of pickpockets in crowded places. If one building could tell the entire history of Türkiye, it would be Hagia Sophia. Built nearly 1,500 years ago, it was once the largest Christian church in the world, famous for its enormous dome that appears to float in the air. When the Ottomans arrived, the building became a mosque, and 4 minarets were constructed around it. In the 20th century, Hagia Sophia was converted into a museum. In recent years, it returned to its role as a mosque. Beneath the dome, golden Christian mosaics stand beside Islamic calligraphy. 2 religions, 2 eras, and 2 worlds exist beneath the same roof, making Hagia Sophia the clearest symbol of Istanbul's complex soul. And if you enjoy discovering the world through true stories, press subscribe and become part of this community. Many more remarkable places are still waiting ahead. Cappadocia and Pamukkale, Turkey's surreal wonders. Directly across from Hagia Sophia, on the opposite side of Sultanahmet Square, the Blue Mosque rises with 6 tall minarets. At the center of the square, the 2 landmarks face one another and form the historic heart of Istanbul, an area preserved with great respect, as Turkey presents some of its most treasured heritage. Not far away, Topkapi Palace once served as the place where Ottoman sultans governed their empire. The Grand Bazaar opens into a vast maze of domed passageways filled with thousands of shops, while the Basilica Cistern appears like a forest of stone columns standing in darkness above reflections on the water. Each place feels like another chapter in the city's long history. Yet, if you think Türkiye is only Istanbul, you have seen only a small part of the country. Deep in Anatolia, Cappadocia opens into valleys covered with unusual stone pillars that rise like enormous mushrooms. Local people call them fairy chimneys. They formed over millions of years, after volcanic ash hardened into soft rock and was slowly shaped by rain and wind. Standing in this landscape, it is easy to feel as though you have arrived on another planet. Beneath the ground, ancient communities carved deep into the soft rock and created underground cities such as Derinkuyu, a maze of many levels that could shelter thousands of people together with livestock, food, and water. When enemies approached, entire communities could disappear below the surface and remain there for several weeks. At sunrise, hundreds of colorful hot air balloons rise together as the valleys below turn gold and orange. High above the ground, the sky becomes a sea of balloons drifting quietly through the morning air. After nightfall, visitors stay in cave hotels where rooms are carved directly into the rock, warm and peaceful like the interior of a mountain that has existed for millions of years. Leaving Cappadocia, the journey continues southwest toward Pamukkale, a name that means cotton castle. From a distance, it looks like a snow-covered hillside beneath the heat of southern Turkey. As you move closer, you realize the white surface is not snow, but mineral rock. Terraces rise one above another like natural bathing pools, filled with clear, warm water that shines turquoise beneath the sunlight. Mineral-rich hot water flows from underground and leaves behind white calcium deposits that have accumulated over thousands of years. Just above it, the ruins of Hierapolis recall the Roman era, when people came here to rest and bathe in water believed to have healing properties. At the journey's end, the southern coast opens toward Antalya, Bodrum, and Fethiye, where mountains descend toward clear water, golden beaches stretch beside marinas, and the Mediterranean sunlight gives everything a slower rhythm. This is where the journey becomes quiet again, surrounded by the sound of waves and the turquoise color of the sea. The real life of people in Türkiye. Turkish people often leave an impression filled with contrasts. Behind the wheel, they can be impatient, and the sound of car horns is a familiar part of Istanbul during rush hour. In everyday life, however, many people are determined, hardworking, and unwilling to give up easily. They wake early and open bakeries, restaurants, carpet shops, or souvenir stores along narrow streets. When facing hardship, they know how to solve problems, adapt, and keep moving forward. This strength has been shaped over generations at the crossroads of civilizations. Many residents travel to work by metro or bus because fuel is expensive and traffic is heavy. Smoking is still common in cafes, on sidewalks, and at street corners. Yet what visitors remember most is the warmth of the people. It may be a glass of tea offered for no particular reason, a smile shared with a stranger, or the feeling of being welcomed as an honored guest, even when you have come from very far away. Behind that warmth, economic life creates serious pressure. The lira has lost value, inflation remains high, and rapidly rising prices force many families to calculate every expense carefully. The minimum monthly wage is only around 28,000 lira, equal to nearly $655, while rent in many parts of Istanbul can exceed $700. For many people, 1 month of rent costs more than their entire income. Taxes on cars and alcoholic drinks are also high, turning things considered ordinary elsewhere into expensive luxuries. Another major challenge is the large number of refugees arriving from Syria, Afghanistan, and other countries affected by war. This places pressure on housing, employment, transportation, and water supplies. Some refugees accept lower wages, which increases competition in an already difficult labor market. This is not simply a question of right or wrong. It is a difficult balance between humanitarian responsibility and limited resources. For visitors, the most comfortable time to travel is during spring, from April to June, or autumn, from September to October. In Istanbul, the Istanbul cart allows you to use the metro, buses, and ferries. Domestic flights can shorten the journey to Cappadocia or Antalya. Around 7 to 14 days is enough to explore the main highlights. After everything, Turkey does not force people to choose between East and West, ancient traditions and modern life, or the sacred and the ordinary. The country has learned how to keep both sides alive together. Hagia Sophia has changed its role across many centuries. Hot air balloons still rise above Cappadocia, and a glass of tea is still offered to a stranger. Despite inflation, social pressure, and heavy burdens, the people continue to work, smile, and open their doors to visitors. The famous bridge connecting two continents stands above the Bosphorus. Yet the more memorable bridge can be found in the way people here connect worlds that seem completely different. Türkiye, where food, tea, and football connect an entire nation. Food is one of the greatest sources of pride for Turkish people, equal to the country's long history. Since the Ottoman era, flavors from the Balkans, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean have met at the same table, creating a rich cuisine with a distinct identity. Turkish people do not need to search elsewhere for inspiration, because almost every story about this country can begin with food. Through each dish, people can see traces of lands that were once part of the Ottoman Empire. Yet when each recipe reached Turkey, it was adapted and became a unique part of local life. Kebab does not come in only one form. Every region has its own methods of seasoning, grilling, and serving it, creating an entire world of meat, spices, and bread. Dolma is made with grape leaves wrapped around rice and mild spices. Baklava contains many layers of thin pastry, crushed nuts, and sweet syrup. It is crisp on the outside, yet soft inside. Turkish coffee is strong and thick, with a distinctive layer of foam. It is prepared through such a unique ritual that UNESCO has recognized the tradition of making and drinking it as part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The meal that best represents the spirit of family, however, is kahvaltı, the traditional Turkish breakfast. On weekends, entire families sit around a table covered with cheese, olives, eggs, tomatoes, cucumbers, honey, warm bread, and glasses of tea that are constantly refilled. Breakfast may last 2, 3, or even 4 hours. This is not because people eat too much, but because no one wants to leave the table too early. It is a time for families to talk, laugh, and enjoy being together. Tea is also far more than a drink. Turkish people call it çay and usually serve it in small glass cups shaped like tulips. Tea appears outside shops, inside cafes, in private homes, and at almost every social gathering. When you enter a store, the owner may offer you tea before asking what you want to buy. The invitation is not intended to pressure you into making a purchase. It is a way of saying, "Sit down, talk with us, and let us find something we share." Refusing can sometimes be considered impolite, because hospitality here is not simply a social custom. It is part of everyday life. Beyond the table, football can change the rhythm of an entire city. Istanbul derby matches fill cafes, flags appear across the streets, and the sounds of car horns and cheering continue late into the night. For 90 minutes, football becomes a shared source of joy, disappointment, and identity for millions of people. In Turkey, a long breakfast, a hot glass of tea, or a football match is never just an ordinary activity. Each one is a way for people to connect with their families, with strangers, and with the country they call home. Türkiye, the two sacred pillars of a nation. To truly understand Türkiye and know how to behave respectfully when visiting, there are two things you must always remember. The first pillar is faith. Most people in Türkiye are Muslim, yet social life is far more secular than in many other parts of the region. People still drink tea in cafes, women go to work, young people meet friends, and daily life continues in a modern way. For many citizens, Islam is first a source of heritage, identity, and inner spiritual meaning. It is not always expressed through strict public rules. Visitors, therefore, usually have considerable freedom in how they dress and live, as long as they respect the religion of local people. Mocking, insulting, or showing contempt toward Islam can be regarded as extremely serious. It may cause not only cultural offense, but also legal trouble. In everyday life, this balance can be seen in cities where the call to prayer rises from mosque minarets, while schools, businesses, and entertainment districts continue to follow a modern rhythm. Foreign visitors are rarely expected to follow religious practices, but respectful behavior is always considered the minimum requirement. The second pillar is Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of modern Türkiye. After the Ottoman Empire collapsed, he guided the country into the 20th century under a secular system in which religion and government were separated. This created a remarkable contrast. A country with a Muslim majority was shaped by a leader who established the foundations of a modern and secular society. Across the country, images of Atatürk appear in schools, government offices, shops, public squares, and many private homes. For a large part of the population, he is not simply a historical figure. He is a symbol of independence, national sovereignty, and the birth of the modern state. That respect is also protected by law. Insulting Atatürk, damaging his monuments, or showing disrespect toward his image can lead to serious consequences. This may sound strict, but for many Turkish people, Atatürk was the leader who helped preserve their country during a period of collapse and disorder. Their gratitude toward him has therefore become part of the national identity. When visiting Türkiye, the most important thing is not to live exactly like the local people, but to respect the values they consider sacred. By showing courtesy toward their faith, Ataturk, and the history of their country, you will usually receive kindness, hospitality, and a warm welcome in return. Türkiye is remembered not only for its ancient domes, the hot air balloons above Cappadocia, or the white terraces of Pamukkale. Behind that beauty, the country also carries the history of many empires, a society constantly balancing tradition with modern life and the economic difficulties its people face every day. After everything, what makes Türkiye truly special is the way two continents, two cultures, and two ways of life continue to exist within one nation. If this video has helped you understand Türkiye more deeply, press like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. What impressed you most about this country?